Opinion video time here on Rauta. Now, I think this calls for a beer, so why the hell not? After all, it's Friday afternoon. So, releases with poor titles and poor covers, or vice versa, with great titles, great cover art. What could go wrong if you decided to go with the poor art? What could go wrong if you selected a stupid name for your album? I guess a lot could go wrong. Now, I think I speak for a better half in metal music. By better, I mean the bigger part of metal musicians and fans alike who just sometimes decide, consciously or unconsciously, ignore albums or other releases because of a name or a cover art thereof. Now, the thing here is, most bands obviously have some degree of quality in their mind that applies to how the music are done, or music is done, how the lyrics are written, etc. Obviously, most bands have some kind of idea what kind of album title is fitting for the music, fitting for the theme, and same applies to the cover art. I mean, it's not really rocket science, as the saying goes. Rocket engineering. The thing here is, usually when the band is, say, not exactly a basket case a department, or when they're not totally really stupid people, that is just normal people, or maybe even smarter, creative people, and they create this release. It's usually kind of a given that they have this mindset like, okay, now you have the music done, we are satisfied with the lyrics, we actually signed already, we inked the album deal. So there it is. Now let's select a title for our album, something that really speaks to the audience, something that is conjuring the people's imagination like, wow, this looks really interesting because, hey, look at the title. And then it is easier to sell. So whether it's about marketing point of view, after all, record labels as much as retail stores, distributors, etc. want to sell your product. Whether we're talking about the sales and marketing perspective or just to the let us speak to the audience, musicians to fans, what you need to have is an interesting title, or at least something that doesn't evoke the idea of this must be other crap. Not other, but other. Anyway, it should really be, the basic kind of stuff. Now, I'm not gonna do a lot of name dropping here because obviously it would be a waste of time for me to just go through all these kind of different names, which are good ones, which are bad ones. Most titles, I guess, fall between the two extremities, the good ones and the bad ones. So there is no point to, go through them. Sometimes a good title can be very provocative. For example, if we're talking about individual songs, think about song title just as Jesus Saves by Slayer. It doesn't really speak to the audience in the terms of like, yeah, this must be about Christian love. But sometimes, being with black humor or satire or, I don't know, sarcasm, it can be really, really hard cookie to crack. So you don't necessarily want to put that on the album. Think about Seasons in the Abyss. It's a way better title. Or Raining Blood. Now, I said I'm not gonna do name dropping, but obviously I need some examples that my point gets across. But then you have also really bad ones. Like I was listening to Soulburn's latest album today, in order to review and all that stuff. And it's called Noah's Dark. Like Noah's Ark, but the nameplate Noah's Ark. Like, why in the earth? Why on earth would you do such a title when you have so good titles previously? I mean, that sounds like a bad wordplay. Maybe it sounded like a really good idea when you were smoking some pot. You were really high, maybe after 12 beers, 3 a.m. in the morning when you were just barbecuing late night. Yeah, let's call it the most fun. No, let me make this clear. The album is actually very good. but the title is very, very unwelcoming, to say the least. It's one of the worst named albums for a long time. Now, obviously, there are titles which are not necessarily outright stupid, but they are very uninteresting. I'm talking about nonsense names, or names that seem like total nonsense. That is, maybe you have just some consonants out there and you're like, this is brr. What the hell does that even mean? It's not really inviting, yeah, I'm gonna check it out because the name doesn't ring a bell. I mean, if you compare to albums such as like, hey, Under a Funeral Moon, that clearly invokes the presence like, hey, this is something even, or Transylvanian Hunger, vampires popping up in your mind, and I'm not talking in a gothic cradle of filth way, but just like, hey, this is some evil shit. I need to check this out. And the same applies to the covers. Obviously, you need to select the cover, depending what kind of music you are doing. I mean, if you're doing gangster rap, obviously you're not going to use Transylvanian Hunger cover on there, and vice versa. Or, of course, if you're doing some, serial killer material, maybe you go for Cannibal Corpse style, and you pretty much get your message dealt across the lines, You're like, hey, this is Eden back to life. There's a corpse on the cover. All right, I get it. It's death metal. It's corpses. It's blood and gore and stuff like that. Gallery Suicide, Vile, names like that kind of give you the good idea. But so many bands have titles and covers which are like, why on earth I would like to check this out? Now, I remember back in the days when I was younger, kind of a pre-internet age, or maybe internet, was there available back then, probably was. But I mean, you didn't have Google and all that stuff. Obviously, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Facebook. I'm talking about late 90s. And I remember wandering to local record stores, browsing some good stuff to buy, because I mean, I didn't really have lots of friends into more extreme metal. Most were just different kind of metal, but anyway. Now, I remember browsing albums, and if I saw a pentagram, I was like, hey, this looks an interesting band, but I had maybe no idea what this band was. For example, I remember a band called Infested, which was one of those Dan Svana bands, and it had really cool titles back in the days, and I'm like, okay, this is about Satan, this is about denying Christ and all that stuff. Okay, pentagrams, maybe inverted crosses, I don't exactly remember the details, and it's a sold deal. Maybe without even listening to the album, I would like, hey, I would like to buy this one, thank you, here's some money, bye-bye, and then I get home and figure out, yeah, this was right up my alley. Like Infested was, if I recall right, kind of a death black metal side project. So it was pretty much what I expected. Then again, I also remember buying some album. I don't even remember the artist name anymore. But I remember it was a side project by Swedish black metal heads. Obviously, having once again inverted crosses and pentagrams and titles very fitting for that stuff. But it was some kind of industrial music, which wasn't my liking. Maybe the colors should have been kind of a warning sign for me. Like, hey, don't go for that. Not without listening anyway. But, and bands like Imbel Nazarene, you already get to know, okay, here's this pentagram, there's these kind of gold horns, there's this inverted cross, and the name, Rotting Christ, Imbel Nazarene. You really get your message across. Dayside, Death, Slayer, it all is delivering like, hey, these are badass bands. This is no just, a gimmick thing. They deliver the real deal. But okay, it's getting more complicated, even if you have a cool name and you just go for, Latin. And you're like, okay, I don't know what this means. Is it good? But then again, even a cover, if it's really cool, can sell you the band. Even if you don't know the band, or banding is a little bit dubious, like Celtic Frost, what the hell does that even mean? I mean, it's not very kind of a given name in that respect. But when you have the album cover where the devil is, making a sling out of Jesus on a cross, I'm talking about the cover, you pretty surely know it. Then you're like, hey, this gets my imagination driving crazy. Or all those great Dan Seagrave covers with death metal albums. or Necrolord doing Dissects and Storm of the Lights band. You're like, hey, this name is fitting, this cover is beautiful, take my money. We all know the deal. But that is kind of like when things click. You pretty much get the feeling about how music communicates with the lyrics, with the cover, with the title, everything. It's everything right there. And when it's a good album, you feel like rewarded. Like, hey, this is your Sherlock Holmes moment. I knew it from the cover, right, Watson? Watson is like, yeah, I know what you mean. And then everybody's happy. You're like, hey, Glenn Benton did it again with D-side. Hey, just look at this. Once upon a cross. Yeah. Fuck around with that stuff. But when some cool bands go for horrible covers, and because you don't know the band yet, you're like, I'm gonna pass on that one. And what about bands with horrible names? Like there was this Finnish band called Korpsesoturi. It's kind of hard to translate because it's kind of combination of poorly written English combined with Finnish. But Korpse, means corpse, like, body, dead body, cadaver, whatever you want to call it. And Soturi means warrior, okay? Corpse warrior, doesn't sound too smart. Then you kind of have this relation, the meaning, like Korpsesoturi is referring to Korpisoturi, which is like just, a lone ranger in the woods, one of those soldiers, maybe as a sniper, ready for enemy targets. Okay, you get the wordplay, but it's a still horrible name. It feels like a goddamn joke. And I know for a fact, that's why I'm using here as an example. I don't want to disrespect the band, even though it's a little bit on and off kind of a band in terms of death metal. But the name is so horrible, even some of my colleagues who write reviews or do interviews, they have just ignored the band. They have decided, I'm not going to touch the band and listen to the band because it has such a horrible name. So, doesn't matter how cool an art you have for a cover or cool name for a release. If your name already is suggesting you're not taking it seriously, you're not gonna do it for real. And I mean, there are so many people who are not touching bands with the jokes inside. I mean. The point here is, if the name already suggests a joke, it's like, hey, if you don't bother naming your band with a real name or having your album with a proper art, why would I take your music seriously? I mean, if your name is a joke, your cover is a joke, your title is a joke, your music must be a joke. Who wants to listen to joke music anyway? Yeah, some people do, especially if they're abusing substances. But that's a different story when you're just goofing around and you don't want to go seriously in that. But I doubt there are many people who are like, hey, I want to pay $40 or euros for a gig with this joke band because their jokes are so hilarious. That doesn't really apply to metal music. Always there are exceptions, yeah, no need to drop them, but mostly people are looking for some solid. It's like a solid groundwork. If you don't know that it's gonna keep you up on the ground, you're not gonna step on it. If you feel it like it's a swamp, you're gonna drown or at least get your feet wet, you're not gonna go there. And still some bands insist, they're gonna get my joke, they're gonna get my wordplay. No, Stark, what a great name. No, it's not. The label should have been like bitch slapping the goddamn band and saying like, don't put that name there or we're not gonna release it. I mean, it's not that hard. But this is my opinion. Maybe I am too serious fella. Maybe I don't just get the funny jokes. Ha ha ha. And I should. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you like goofy names? Do you ignore goofy covers and just go for it for the sake of music and all that stuff? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Put your comments on the box below. Does title matter? Does a cover art matter? Does band name matter? Or is it just all equal, all nice, all good? Let me know what you think. Looking forward to your comments. Take care, be safe, drink beer.